And we are live for a new episode of the Electrek Podcast. I am Fred Lambert, your host, and I'm joined by Seth Wintram. How are we doing, Seth?
I'm good.
All right. So what we're going to talk about this week, we're going to talk about Tesla, making a pivot to energy. A lot of energy news when it comes to Tesla this week. So we're going to discuss that, which I think is interesting. Then we're going to talk a little bit about FSD. There's NHTSA is kind of closing the walls on Tesla regarding a potential recall of FSD. So we're going to discuss that. And then at the same time, it's about to launch in Europe, though it was delayed to next month again. Then the BMW i3 was launched this week, and it grabbed a lot of headlines due to its specs, specifically the range, the charging, and also we're going to discuss the design. It was a big change in design for BMW. Uber and Rivian are partnering up. We're going to discuss that. Volvo is killing the iX30 in the US, unfortunately. Already a next gen upgrade for Xiaomi, the SU7. BYD getting a giant boost from the oil situation right now, oil prices. And then we're going to finish it up with an update on Donut Lab, which we didn't do last week because it wasn't that big of an update. But this week is a little bit bigger. And we're going to discuss the clock is ticking for them to deliver on what they claim because almost the end of the first quarter. And then, as usual, we're going to end with questions for you guys. I already have a question from NC9066. But if you guys have any question about anything that we discussed today or any other topics in the EV world that you would want to take on, we're going to discuss that at the end. So you could put that in the comment section. We're going to get to it in half an hour, 45 minutes, depending on how fast we go through the biggest news of the week that we covered on Electrek. So first one, Tesla is reportedly. Oh, sorry. That's so frustrating when the sneeze comes and it just doesn't come. It's so frustrating.
Look at the
light. Like nothing is happening. Tesla is reportedly in talk to buy about $3 billion worth of Chinese solar manufacturing equipment. So this is a big change of pace for Tesla. We kind of announced that Tesla's solar business was effectively dead a few years ago. We closely reported on the phasing out. There are a lot of Tesla let go of a lot of installation team, a lot of scheduling team, a lot of solar panel design, solar system design teams. Obviously the solar roof is one of the biggest flop ever. It's still alive, but it's being installed by a handful of third-party installers, not Tesla. And yeah, it's nowhere near the installation or production rate that Tesla planned for the product. And even a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago now, Tesla stopped reporting its solar deployment. Almost exactly when Elon managed to get rid of the lawsuit that was on top of him for the SolarCity acquisition. And his defense for the lawsuit was always that, sure, there was a lot of, self-dealing when it comes to buying a company that I was heavily invested in. And with Tesla, which I controlled, buying a public company that I was the biggest investor of, I had control of the board, and my cousins were in charge of the company. But it's all good because solar became a big part of Tesla's business after that. And then as soon as that lawsuit was cleared, he killed the solar business at Tesla, stopped reporting solar deployment because it was getting so small anyway. But this year, really, in the last few months, we saw Tesla actually doing things towards expanding solar deployment at the company, mainly producing their own solar panels at a small scale in Buffalo and selling those panels. So that's something, mainly again through third-party installers and everything, but still it's a big deal for Tesla. Like one of the rare steps towards that. And then Elon went pretty big with his giant, hyperboles after that, saying that Tesla is going to deploy roughly 100 gigawatts of solar capacity, solar manufacturing capacity in the US. Now, one way to look at this, to be fair though, it's like it's not it's not really Elon going back to his roots as someone who wants to accelerate the advent of renewable energy. It has almost exclusively to do with data centers. Now, data centers are extremely hungry in power, so he sees an opportunity to capture a market, which specifically a market of new energy demand from data centers in the US. And, with his good friend Trump in power, now in his, endless trade wars, especially with China, which produces much of the world's solar panels. There's a lot of incentive to produce those in the US rather than somewhere else. But still, there's reasons why China is producing a lot of these panels is they have the manufacturing expertise for them. For even though Tesla wants to manufacture them, they have to buy manufacturing equipment from China. But this is a big deal nonetheless, because the apparently, from what we heard from the Reuters report, the front runner is a company called Suzhou Maxwell Technologies, listed on the Shenzhen Stock Exchange. And they are a manufacturer of solar cell screen printing production. So Tesla is looking to buy from them a ton of that equipment. But there's still a few things to clear, especially regarding they need approval from China's Commerce Ministry to export these equipment, because of course they will also compete with China's solar panel manufacturing. But if that goes through, Tesla is reportedly, based on the report, looking to have this equipment delivered by this autumn, so by the end of the year. And apparently they're going to Texas. So the panel manufacturing would happen in Texas, which makes sense. Most of Tesla's new manufacturing capability have been going to Texas in the last few years.
Yep. Didn't
But
they
still
have some solar in New York? They were going to build panels in New York?
Yeah, they are building panels in New York, but we're talking about 300 megawatts of capacity per year, roughly, versus 100 gigawatts here. So it's several order of magnitude bigger. And again, 100 gigawatts would, I think, triple or quadruple the current production capacity of solar panel in the US. So we're talking about a completely new scale here. And as usual, it's Elon Musk saying this. So keep that in mind. Like often, his targets are a lot bigger than reality. But $3 billion worth of just solar equipment. So that's not the factory itself. If they are ordering for $3 billion of solar equipment, the factory entirely could cost like 10 or something. This is still a giant investment towards solar production. So ultimately, it's a good thing, and it should reduce the cost of solar panels in the US quite a bit. In the same vein, Tesla was also confirmed to be the buyer for LG's LFP cells in this is in Ohio and Michigan. I always keep confusing the two of them because they have a couple of factories there. Michigan, the Michigan factory. Okay, so a few like a year ago at this point, a little bit more maybe, GM and LG had a little falling out because Trump came into power. GM was like, we don't care about making that many EVs anymore since Trump changes the rules. So we don't need all this battery capacity that we made a deal with LG to build new factories in the US. So they basically, divided things out. You get a factory, we get a factory. And then LG with its factory in Michigan was like, figure out what you want to do with them. And then there was a rumor that a specific company last year was looking to buy out all the capacity, a $4.3 billion deal, LFP cell capacity. We reported that we believe that this was Tesla. And now it was confirmed through U.S. government officials this week that Tesla is indeed the buyer. So these will be LFP cells made in Michigan, specifically used for Tesla's Megapack production in the US. So these are cells for energy. Like I said, everything points to Tesla going big on energy right now. It's its only growing business segment right now. Automotive is down, but energy is up. So they're doubling down on it. Seems to be a smart move. Rare one for the automaker these days. But yeah, it's big capacity. So we're talking about they are aiming to get to 50 gigawatt hour capacity. I don't know, maybe not right away. The first delivery, mass production is expected in the second half of 2027. So we're still not too close from this. This is a while. Yeah.
Yeah, over a year out, right?
Over a year out. In the meantime, what's going to happen is that Tesla's going to have to keep buying cells from China. Tesla has its own very small scale production of LFP cells in California right now, but the capacity, once completely scaled, is going to be 10 gigawatt hour, which is like, it's not that much, but it's actually pretty good. But that's when it is scaled. This is like 5 times that. So meanwhile, Tesla's going to have to take care of that and use that and supplement it with production from China, which is tariffed up to 84%, I think, now in the US. So it's pretty bad. I mean, unless something happens with these court decisions. No, I think the court decision was not China, right? China still, the tariff still holds, I think. It was more the other countries. I'm confused by that. Notice. All right. Moving on to FSD. So there was a big upgrade to one of several NHTSA probe into FSD in the last few years. These things move slowly. I think this one started in October 2024, so we're already like a year and a half into this probe. This one is specifically, it's not the biggest one. The biggest one is the one with the 58 incident regarding traffic violation, and Tesla is having like a hard time delivering the data to NHTSA about it. I think the deadline was actually this week for the latest deadline, so we should know like in the next few days to weeks max about this one. But the one that was updated this week was specifically about visibility. Road condition includes sun glare and fog. So it's about the cameras at Tesla not being able to see the road and not warning the driver enough that, hey, I cannot see what's going on, so you should probably take over. And there was several accidents that were linked to those conditions. And through their investigation, to their probe, like the first stage of a probe, talk with the automaker about it, and they found other accidents. Tesla just said, Tesla often, as they often do, they're like, we did an over-the-air software update, already taking care of that. But based on Tesla's own analysis of the situation, they admitted that it would only fix about half of those accidents that were part of the probe. So even their own update would not have prevented all of these crashes. So what happened is that NHTSA upgraded the probe to what they call an engineering analysis. So it's just more resources being spent to the probe, and generally it's the last step before they actually do a safety recall on this. Also extended, because of the new incident that were added, they extended the coverage of the probe to 3.2 million vehicles in the US. So I assume that's pretty much every vehicle that has like autopilot hardware 2.0 and up, I would assume. Yeah. Okay. What else to say about that? Yeah, so that could actually lead to a recall in the next. I mean, these things can take another 18 months, really. So it could never happen. They could fix it before then. They could be like a recall, but the OT update might have already happened before that. There's a lot that could happen from this. And like I said, this is not the biggest one. The biggest one is the traffic violation one that is also ongoing, and we should get an update on that in the next few days. Meanwhile, while this is happening in the US, Tesla is pushing hard to get FSD launch in Europe. And it was supposed to happen today, March 20th. But, as usual, it's not really the case. What happened is that last year, Elon said, actually in January, Elon said that Tesla would get approved in March, by the end of March in Europe for FSD. And when he said that, the RDW, which is the Dutch road authorities, said that, whoa, we didn't say that at all. We said that by that date, we're going to complete the testing and the data collection and analysis phase. We're not necessarily going to approve you by then. And sure enough, what happened today is that Tesla announced that they have finished this process, but now they have to review all the documentation and test result to move forward. But Elon has already announced that by April 10th, this is all going to be done and they're going to be approved. So let's see about that. The story tells us that it might be a little bit more complicated. And that's for the Netherlands. But the way it works in the EU is that once an exemption to the rules is approved, in this case by the RDW in the Netherlands, then FSD can launch in the Netherlands, and then other countries can decide whether they adopt the same exemption as and then just transfer it over. So it simplifies the process to go, Europe wide. And they expect that that's going to happen by the end of this summer. So we're still a few months away from a true launch of FSD throughout Europe, but getting closer a step at a time. And this is obviously Tesla's hope. Elon has described this as like the main issue for Tesla in Europe. That's what's preventing them to grow their cell, actually stop the bleeding, because the cells have keep being going down. So it's more about stopping the bleeding and then maybe trying to claw their cell back into a higher level of cells over 200,000 units per year. Still pretty far from their peak at 300,000 units a year. But I don't personally see that happening, just because even in the US, which has had FSD for a long time, the take rate is, high teens, maybe something close to that. So to go from how does a product that's only, less than 1 in 5 people buy gonna really boost your sale? Maybe this can have like a 10 to 20% boost on sales, but it's just gonna stop the bleeding basically in Europe. It's not gonna help that much. And then also at the same time, I think there's like a kind of a negative effect that comes out of this. We've seen it in Australia set when Tesla launched FSD last year, where people who've been waiting, in the case of Australia, let's say that some of them have been waiting for, at that point, almost 10 years. Yeah, 10 years. Some of them 10 years since they announced the self-driving was coming, and you could buy a car that was supposedly gets self-driving coming. But you're right, 5 years since it actually launched in the US. But then they were told that they would get unsupervised self-driving, and then they wait this 10 years or 5 years or whatever, and then they get FSD, which is still supervised, and they're like, we waited all this time for that. So there was a little bit of a backlash, and some lawsuits already in Australia regarding that. All right, let's move on from Tesla. Let's talk about the BMW i3. So did you follow the launch?
I did afterwards.
Yeah,
and watched the commentary.
But I guess my better question was like, did you get a sense of the impact it had? Because it had a pretty big impact, it looks like.
Yeah, it was strangely, for a sedan, it was strangely followed. I got a lot of.
Yeah, you're right. For a sedan specifically, I had a bunch of people reach out to me and were like, "Hey, did you see that? That's pretty big." And yeah, the big thing is like moving to a 800-volt system, 400 kilowatt charging on that thing, over 400 miles of range, which is huge. So all great things, great efficiency, great charging, and a brand new look set. Look at this. The beaver teeth kidney grill is gone.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah. How do you feel about it?
It's funny because like when you think of the i3, you think of that like weird mobile, that tall thing. So they're gonna have to do a little bit of marketing to kind of shake people's. We talked about the i3 was launched in China a while back. It didn't look like this, but it was a sedan.
Yeah.
So not entirely new, but it's good to see this. I also see this as like, the Mercedes CLA is also very compelling, next generation, like, as good as Tesla and beyond, kind of, charging, software, battery, range, all the things that, we kind of expect from like a very modern EV. So this is kind of like in that same vein, I think.
Yeah, that's a good point. I like the CLA comparison. This is I'm curious about the pricing. I don't think we have pricing yet, unless I missed it, but it's going to make a big difference. So
Yeah.
the obviously the look a lot more palatable than the original i3, like you said, but also a completely different vehicle. Like it's just a different form factor. They just reuse the name, but this is like what 3 Series electric was always supposed to be. But the big kicker is obviously it's the range, because in Europe, WLTP, they're going to be able to advertise this as up to 900 kilometers, 559 miles, which is massive. Obviously, realistic range is closer to 440 miles, I think, on the EPA, but still, this is still massive. In North America, it's going to have NAC standard. So here's a quarter from behind look, quarter through quarter behind. It's sharp looking. It's
Yeah. I like
very
that.
simple lines, right?
Yeah, that behind the rear wheel, like,
Yeah,
it's an interesting. I mean, it's new for BMW. I think it's pretty
yeah.
good.
It's definitely a statement for them. Like the front end specifically, front end is completely different. Like every time there's something different, it's like we are a bit resistant to change. And you and I were both not big fans of the kidney grill and beaver teeth, however you want to call them. Um, I've seen better front ends from other
Right.
automakers as well, because it feels like they want to keep that
They have to
real
have that.
feeling.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
have to have that, like, BMW 2, circles or whatever.
yeah.
So, but I mean, that's just a small part of the
Mm-hmm.
overall look. I'm just happy people are still making sedans. Jeez,
Mm-hmm.
seems like
Oh, this is
everything.
gonna do well in Europe.
Yeah,
The interior, you have what we've seen in a few other BMW lately. These crooked corners here for the big screen. Also, I don't know why you would do that. It kind of it frames the entire interior in a weird way. Like maybe it's my OCD, but my OCD doesn't like it at all. This though, the screens here in the back are becoming increasingly more popular in China specifically, and I do like them. I especially in the YU7 from Xiaomi. I've used it. I've driven it with that, and I do really like this. Like it's a good compromise between that and heads-up display. So instead of having an instrument cluster or an heads-up display, you have this thing here, and it works very well, and also can add information for passenger side too. It's I like it a lot. You have a beautiful interior here with a back seat. You're gonna get an M option on this too, right? Then I think this could be a pretty good car with a M.
yeah. Do they call it the MI3 or the IM3?
Yeah, good question. Well, I think also BMW does. Yeah, not to get confused with the actual M model versus like a M option package on an
Right.
i3 model, which going to give you more aggressive sports feature, but not an actual change to suspension, powertrain, etc. So this is starting production in Germany in August. Deliveries start in autumn. It's gonna arrive in the US this summer.
Can't be this summer. Next summer.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because so set to arrive this summer, so that's gonna be Europe as well, I would assume. But the price MSRP expected to be around $60,000. So it's
Sounds
still
about right.
not cheap either.
Not cheap.
Like, yeah, so it's not gonna really compete with like the Model 3 and things like that. It's gonna be probably more a CLA competitor. All right, but great addition nonetheless from BMW. Uber and Rivian had been news this week. They are partnering on bringing the R2 as robotaxis on Uber's fleet with a deployment of up to 50,000 R2s. And at the same time, they're doing an investment into Rivian. So Uber is investing into Rivian, and so it's going to be up to $1 billion, but it's in trenches, I heard. So yeah, to begin, Uber has committed to an initial investment of $300 million, subject to regulatory approval. Verge said it's willing to invest up to 1.25 billion through 2030, contingent on achieving specific autonomous milestones by specific dates. So yeah, we know that Rivian has its Autonomy Plus package now. All the R2s are equipped with a very extensive software and hardware suite that's going to improve over time through software update, much like Tesla's FSD. It's a competitor to Tesla FSD, and right now it doesn't have all the same capabilities and all the same performance, but it's getting pretty decent. And Rivian is investing heavily in that, and by the end of the year should have a competing product. And then through the next few years, they're going to release increasingly higher level of autonomy. And as they do that, Uber is going to keep investing more and also buy some R2s for robotaxi deployment in the US. Similar deal to Lucid and Uber did last year or earlier this year. I don't remember the exact timing. However, the Lucid deal was also with Nuro. So Nuro provides the self-driving technology and add also a hardware on top of the Gravity for that. So Rivian kind of plays the role of Lucid and Nuro in this deal, similar deal with Uber. A lot of competitor in the self-driving advanced driver assist system. Like people always thought, like the Tesla super fan was always the idea that there's no one close. Tesla's gonna own the entire market, but they were always pretty skeptical on that. And sure enough, it looks like by the time Tesla has a true level 5 system, like a lot of other companies gonna have them too. All right, moving on to some worse news. Volvo has confirmed, according to a report from The Drive, that the EX30, its most affordable EV, is going to be out of the US market by the end of this model year. So basically, they don't see a market for it right now in the US amid the current political situation, which is a real bummer.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of our favorite vehicles.
Yeah. It's I see a bunch of them in Montreal. They're really great looking, small, sharp, and you did the review of it. You like the powertrain too a lot.
Yeah, I love everything about it. The software was a little problematic, and the screen was a little small. I need reading glasses, so. But other than that,
yeah, one less affordable EVs in the US.
yeah.
Xiaomi, one of my favorite company to follow these days. They have some great stuff. They came out today, this week, with an update to the SU7. We knew it was coming, but now we get everything. We get the look, the updated look, which look a lot less now like the Taycan. So for those that were upset by the resemblance, that is mostly gone, in my opinion. I see a little bit more of the high-end Model 3 in front with the sharp front end, so which I like. I actually bought the new Model 3. And
Also, a little Ionic 6 in there, maybe?
Yeah, and from this angle, if you go from the back 3/4, I think you see it less. So do I have another picture in there? No. Yeah, so it's a slight design refresh, especially the front end being updated. There's also, you get a little bit more range out of it, which was already the big, the thing. The Xiaomi SU7 is a direct Model 3 competitor in China. Already managed to outsold it last year, which was a crazy feat for a company. This car is 2 years old, and they already are doing a significant upgrade to it. Most of it is things that they learned from the YU7 that launched last year. So they bring a lot of the capability over. So a bigger battery pack. You have still the 400-volt system, smaller pack for the standard version that gets you 720 kilometers CLTC, but that's that's still over 300 miles of range. And but now you get 72 miles increase on the Pro version, which you just break 900 kilometers, which is over 500 miles, realistically closer to 400 miles. And the Max version, which has a little bit more power, dual motor also, 835, so just 35 kilometers more. So all version get a little bit bump between 20 and 72 kilometers of bump of range. A little bit faster charging too now, 10 to 80% in just 11 minutes, which is not BYD 5-minute speed, but still pretty close. One of these actually used BYD cells. I don't know CLT. Yeah, the first version, the standard version, I think used, and then CLTC for the others. At least that was the previous version. I don't know if they changed that for this. They updated the suspension a little bit, continuous damper control. They updated their sensor suite now with they have the cameras have auto cleaning on them, which I think is a big upgrade. If you really want autonomy, I think you have to have auto cleaning cameras. Otherwise, humans are gonna have to be in the loop at some point. They have a 700 tops system, up from 508 tops for the onboard computer. And Xiaomi has a FSD competitor in China called Huawei Autonomous Driving. I might actually check it out next month. I might be going to China. We'll see.
Oh, interesting. I was just going to say, are they coming to Canada?
Not yet. I think BYD, Geely, and so forth, or GD are going to be first. I don't think Xiaomi has the bandwidth for it just now. They still don't have the capacity for production capacity just for China. So they are focusing on that market. But yeah, it's the Beijing Auto Show coming up next month.
Ooh.
So I might go check it out. They updated the safety. They added more airbags. They had quite a few crashes that made the news in China. A lot has to do too with the car, just crazy powerful. Like people are not used to that kind of power, and they crash it. But they have to counter that with the better safety. The prices went up. So you have a lot more capacity, but the prices went up. The standard now is 229,000 yen, up by 10,000 yen, but it's still $33,000 base price. And then if you want the max, that's 309,000 yen, up also 10,000, $44,000, which is still like, I mean, between you. It would be, I would like to have, like, we just talked about the i3. I would like to have a comparison between the i3 and this, like the max i3 and then let's say the base, let's say the max SU7 and the base i3, which is $16,000 more.
Yeah.
And see a comparison. I think I would probably have to go with the SU7 Max with those specs.
For the price, for sure.
Yeah. The $16,000 difference is not little. And they all come with LiDAR. They also have LiDAR and radar sensors, 4mm wave radar sensors. All right, 2 more news items. I'm going to jump into the comment section to talk to you guys. So if you guys have questions for us, I see already plenty of people are in the comment section. But if you have a question, you can put them down. We still have some time to get to them. So I don't know if you've been following the war in Iran, pretty depressing stuff. But one of the direct consequences, other than the people affected in the region, is the more global consequence is the oil prices have been shooting up, hovering around $100 a barrel, and often threatening to go much higher. I think it peaked at 120 at some point and then went back down quickly, but still, around 30% more than they were before the war 2 weeks ago. And this is impacting everyone, not just everyone that has a car, but everyone that, everything is on a truck at some point, and those gas prices are affecting the price of transport of everything. But when it comes to people having to go to the gas pump, pumping gas, it's especially frustrating. And then you see your neighbor arriving home without having to stop at a gas station and just parking with their car, and it makes you think. And BYD is apparently one of the biggest benefactor of this, especially in Asia, because a lot of, especially China and Asia in general, is getting a lot of their petroleum from Iran. And they are specifically worried about not just the higher prices right now, but just the supply capacity overall. And China has been moving rapidly into being 100% electric by 2035. But now it's making people think that they want to be in that transition sooner rather than later, because you don't want to be stuck with a car that runs on something that you cannot import anymore. And BYD is noting now that there was a report in Bloomberg this week that polled some salesmen across Asia, the Philippines, Thailand, and China, and they report that their showrooms are just buzzing with people. They're being extremely busy right now, and they are citing the gas crisis as a reason why.
Makes sense.
Yep. I think we're going to see a lot more of that before this is over. All right, a quick update on Donut Lab. Nothing crazy again this week. The last 2 weeks, so for people who have been following, Donut Lab, miracle battery that's supposed to have 100,000 cycles, 400 watt-hour per kilogram of energy density, charges in 5 minutes. First solid-state battery in production, in the production vehicle. And unveiled at CES this year, and supposedly going to be inside the Verge motorcycle, shipped by the end of the quarter, which is a week and a half away at this point. So something's going to happen. It has to happen now. And over the last month and a half, what they've been doing to try to build credibility is they've been releasing test results, specifically independent testing from VTT Lab in Finland, every week to show like, hey, we have a real capacity on this, real capacity on that. However, a lot of those things that they independently verified are not the biggest claim about the battery, which I repeat are 100,000 cycles and the energy density. Last week was, I think, discharge over idle discharge, like phantom drain on a certain temperature or something like that, which was not that, it was pretty good, but not that impressive either. This week, what they did is that they actually claimed to have one of those battery pack inside a Verge motorcycle, and they brought the Verge motorcycle for charging at a charging station, and they charge it at 5C, 100 kilowatts for 5 minutes straight. And they posted the video with the full cycle, which is good. It's arguably a game changer. Not that many electric motorcycle can charge DC fast charge at that rate, so that's good. I think also the clear claim is that there's no active cooling. So it's air cooled, so there's no active liquid cooling in there. When you start getting to 100 kilowatt charging, normally you would see liquid cooling, preconditioning of the battery pack, and all that. You don't need that in this, which is obviously a great advantage. So that is impressive in itself, though we cannot confirm it really. But my main thing with that test that I was not too impressed is that it's the standard 18 kilowatt hour battery pack, I think. 18 kilowatt hour battery pack in there. So it's their smaller pack. The impressive thing with the Donut Lab is that supposedly it's going to enable, due to its extremely high energy density, both volumetric and weight related, a 30 kilowatt hour back inside a motorcycle, which is huge, and that's enabled 270 miles of range. This is not that, apparently. This is the 18 kilowatt hour pack. So a little bit less impressive. And like I said, the clock is ticking on them. So they need to do something within the next week and a half. Otherwise, they're going to start losing credibility fast. All right, let's jump into the comment section.
All right. Question before the show. How big do you think the operating fleet of Tesla is? Cars sold and still operating? Who do you think is the next runner-up by brand? I think that, assuming they want to know how many EVs.
Like entire fleet?
Yeah, it's a couple million, right?
More than that. It's like 10, closing in on 10 million at this point.
10 million?
No?
Yep.
Yeah.
Sounds right.
Worldwide, I think, yeah, they've been producing a few million per year for like 5 years now or so. And it's closer to 2 million a year in the last 3 years. So yeah, it's so are they asking operating fleet? So how many are left? How many have been like not that many are like, other than the cars that crash and everything, but I still have one of the first Tesla ever produced, all of the first real, like not the Roadster, that was like more put together from a Lotus, but I still have a Model S 2012, so that's one of the very first Tesla, and it's still on the road. So, though I'm kind of, we just had the computer failed again, and
Oh, really?
yeah,
They're running out of those things to
no,
repair it
they
with?
still they did an upgrade for it, and but
Okay.
we already did upgrade it like a few years ago. We did the MCU change because it had the memory issue and it kept crashing. So I need to go back to look at my service history because I'm curious how long it lasted.
All right. Top of the evening. Your biggest Ken Power fan and now Lucid fan too. Cosmos will be wild.
Cosmos
All
is
right.
the cheaper, the cheaper
Yep.
Lucid.
All right. Carl says Elon took a huge government tax break in New York for that flop of a gigafactory there.
Yeah.
They are making some superchargers.
Yeah, now they are in good standing with the New York government. So the New York government had a deal with them that they had to maintain a certain level of employment, and if they did, they had access to the factory basically rent free or so.
Yeah,
for a certain number of years.
Tax free, yeah.
Yeah.
So an account from Facebook,
A real account
called RJ Scaringe. You know, it really frustrates me that they got rid of the verified badge. Like, they just totally made it. Like, wouldn't that be great if you could actually verify? I don't imagine that RJ's jumping in our
He's welcome on the podcast whenever he wants, though. We'd love to talk to him.
Yeah. All right. Jesse SEA 77. Sorry if it's a repeat. How do you see the U.S. war on Iran affecting EVs and renewable energy in general? Are we seeing any going on already due to it? I think it's positive for EVs and renewable energy, but this is one of those we're too early to tell how big an impact, I think.
Yeah, it depends on how long it lasts. But every time humans, they forget quick. So even if it doesn't last, which I hope it doesn't last, just for the benefit of everyone, it should be in your mind that this can happen. Like just a few geopolitical thing happen. It's not a small one, but it's still there's a lot of bottlenecks in oil that can affect oil prices, and politics are involved, which is also true to electricity prices. However, you cannot have your own gas pump at home for the most part. I'm sure some rich people do it, some wealthy, crazy wealthy people.
But
for the most part, for those people, you cannot do that. But set right now is inside a house that's powered by solar with solar on top, and that goes into his EVs. And if the electricity rates go up next year, it just doesn't change anything for him. And that a lot of people can do that. This is accessible to not everyone. It's not exactly cheap, but it's also a lot more accessible to more people. And in general, even if you don't have a home, if you have you rent or whatever, electricity rates, even though they can vary, they're a lot more stable than gas prices in general. So people should just remember that and think about their next EVs being their next car being electric. And I think a lot of people will do that regardless of how long this lasts. But also a lot of people, as soon as the prices go down, they forget about it and let's go fill up my giant diesel truck.
Yeah, and for all the crazy preppers out there, it's going to be a lot easier to generate electricity in the Mad Max Armageddon land than it is to refine, fossil fuels.
Yeah, gas doesn't last that long.
No,
it doesn't last that long on its own. Yeah, while your solar panel is going to last they're warranted for 20 years, but they can last 40 years, whatever.
Yep. All right, some tariffs on China were illegal, some stayed. Yeah. Tariffs. Question: are the Verge motorcycles using donut batteries still being delivered this month? I think that's supposedly, right?
Yeah, we still have a week and a half to see.
All right, and then i3 will be sick as a wagon. We didn't talk about that. Is there a wagon version of the i3?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a wagon coming.
Yeah, shooting brake or whatever they call those cool things. That would be actually a pretty sweet car. It would be kind of like a Taycan Cross Turismo or whatever. All right, I had an old i3 and it was amazing. Part of me wishes they'd bring it back with the same design. Yeah, so the i3 original design was very, to put it nicely, polarizing. And there are people who love that design. suicide doors and all. Obviously, everybody who loves it didn't have to drop off kids at school from the back seat because you have to open
Yeah.
the front door to open the back door. That was my big gripe. So
Yeah. The size was interesting. Maybe Jesse's in Europe. I don't know. I know a lot of Europeans liked it. Like it was not too big, not too small. I know I've the only time I've driven it actually was in Barcelona, and I was happy to have you have a feeling of being a little bit tall in the vehicle while still being manageable in a city that's had whole roads and all that. So yeah, it's an interesting car.
yeah, it's pretty similar to the Bolt actually. Obviously
Yep.
different tires, but
hmm
similar form factor. All right, Carl, my disappointment with the i3 is that it's using over 100 kilowatt battery. Carl, I think you're in the minority there. I think people like the big battery. We need to shrink
Yeah.
them, not grow them, not sustainable to inflate with every generation. I think they are shrinking the size of the battery per kilowatt hour. We're getting more dense, energy efficient batteries. So it's not necessarily growing linearly, but
Yeah. I agree with Carl as a principle. Like efficiency is way better than just jamming more batteries inside a car. But in most market, especially in the US, you're still trying to convince people to go electric, and it's easier to convince them with longer range. And then after they are hooked on EVs, you're like, hey, do you realize right now you don't need 400 miles of range every day in your car? It doesn't make sense. You're better off with a more efficient, smaller battery pack with fast charging capacity. That's going to enable you to do long distance travel while being on a day to day basis a lot more efficient in your travels.
agree. All right, and they're dropping the i4, so that sucks.
Yeah.
The i4 was a good car. Like I enjoyed that, but it was actually shockingly good for basically doing no work. They just pulled out the engine and threw in a electric drivetrain. So it was
hmm
actually amazingly good for the amount of effort they put in. But I think a purpose built EV is going to be much
It
more.
was expensive though, wasn't it? Too. It was,
Yeah, it was expensive as well, and a little bit bigger than the i3,
mhm.
obviously. Tesla will be the last to enter.
I think I was talking about full self driving. Yeah.
Oh, right.
I'm guessing.
Skeptic says, imagine telling somebody in 1975 that one of the biggest technological pursuits of the 21st century would be taxis. I can't help but think all this taxi stuff will struggle to find demand. I don't know. It's the idea of a robo taxi seems like it will have a lot of utility.
Yeah, I see that, but I think if you look, it's like anything, like the AI race right now. Like people, there's some good use to it, there's some obvious good use to it, and then there's some trashy use to it. And but people when you're in a sector, you like to inflate the impact. Like everyone in Silicon Valley says that like their product's going to revolutionize the world, and this is like a whole meme, really. And I think a lot of people are doing that with taxis, with robo taxis. Elon being the main perpetrator here, obviously.
Mhm.
But it's so it compared to that, I understand skeptics' point of view, where there is clear benefit to it, but in terms of the actual overall demand, if you look, you have to look closely at the current ride-hailing market, which is significant, but not growing at an insane pace anymore. So we seem to be closer to a plateau. And then you look, how much can we realistically reduce the cost of that by removing the driver? And then as we reduce the cost of that, just how much more growth can we get? I think it's smaller than everyone that is in this sector, like Elon and who else is a big like proponent of that? Even like Waymo, I think, is being like a lot more realistic about this thing. Is like, and people love already the experience. So there's dual benefits, I think, because people that are using Waymo and now prefer it to the average Uber experience. So there's an advantage there, but it's expensive right now, and the price will come down. So as it comes down, obviously it's going to be way more popular, and it's going to swallow ride hailing at some point. but is it gonna? How much more can it grow ride hailing? I just probably like a 2x, maybe 3x. I don't know, but not like 10x like Elon claims right now.
Right. Do you think RJ is following Elon off the cliff of moving towards full autonomy, robotaxis, and now robotics? I think Rivian makes great vehicles that people want to drive. Yeah, I think Rivian's really focusing mostly on upping production and getting the R2 lineup and eventually R3 lineup going. But they're also, as you would have to do, moving toward autonomy and robotaxis.
Yeah, there's a lot of people right now that will tell you, myself included, if I'm buying a car right now, I would want to have autopilot in it. I would have to have a very advanced driver assistance system in it. It is useful. I see benefits in it. I know there's a ton of problems with them, but the way I use it, I think I'm safe how I use it, and I I enjoy it. It makes driving longer distances, especially on the highway, easier, more relaxed. I arrive home a little bit more relaxed. I think there's an advantage of that. Um, so he knows that if he wants to sell a lot of cars, especially with the R2, that's going to be a more mass market vehicle, it would be an advantage for him to have that and compete on that front. I think that's it. And robotaxis, like if you're doing that, then might as well aim for the highest level possible, and then you see get there. So I don't think with Tesla. The problem is that we've seen Tesla making compromise on the driving experience, on the features inside the vehicles because they thought autonomy was around the corner. Um, have we seen that from Rivian? I don't, not that I know of, nothing that I can think of. So to answer your question, I don't think so. And then the robotics part, so that he's referring to Mind Robotics, that spun off of Rivian. I mean, I think that's just smart business where they're not doing humanoid robots or anything like that, like Tesla. They developed some robotic technology for their own manufacturing. They're like, hey, this is actually something that other companies could use. So they are spinning that off so that they can actually sell that to people. That's it. I think not a concern for me regarding RJ.
All right. My thing's a little frozen here. All right. Here we go. i3 is a Model 3 killer, 550 miles of range, 50K price range. I would wonder what the 300 miles range i3 would cost, 400-ish. And the i3X with almost 500 miles range. I wouldn't say it's a Model 3 killer just because the price is a lot higher.
Yeah,
And
it's closer to 60 to start now.
Right.
But you're right, though. If they have like a 300-mile ones, rear-wheel drive with 40,
yeah,
now you start to take away a lot of that, premium Model 3 stuff.
Carl says Volvo dumping what is essentially a new, barely started model is a huge problem for them. I've seen 0 EX30s in San Diego. That's funny. I just saw an EX30 maybe like an hour ago here in New York.
And I see plenty in Quebec.
Yeah, and they're all-wheel drive, so maybe something you don't really need in San Diego is all-wheel drive. All right, BMW look like 100K cars, but half price. I'm glad Honda canceled the 100K electric Sony cars. That would be a massive flop against Rivian R2, Lucid, Cosmo, BMW i3, iX. Who would pay 100K?
Is it canceled? The Sony Afila is done?
I hadn't heard that actually.
Yeah, that's news to me. I need to check that out.
Elon told people a car could drive by sight, yet that car didn't have a front bumper camera to see directly in front of it. Now he started groupthink nonsense about humanoids. Yeah, Elon's got some issues.
There's some truth to that for sure.
I checked out the i3 subreddit, and all the i3 owners are pissed. They slapped the name on that new car.
Oh, come on. People, they can do whatever they want with that. Like,
all right. Do we have estimates outside Google searches if EVs are selling better in the US 2022? Google searches is not how you get.
Yeah, it wouldn't be. And there's so many factors. I'm sure that it's helping right now, but from what we saw for the first 2 months of the year in the US, sales are basically like half of what they were last year for EVs. I'm sure March is always better anyway, so maybe March catches up a little bit, and then what happened with the gas prices helping too.
Skeptic says it'll be ironic if Trump's reckless stupidity ends up being a bigger factor for the EV adoption than the tax credits he canceled out of spite. That's a great point. I agree.
Yeah, maybe, especially with the timing. When you think about it, because the timing for like boosted EV sales quite a bit in Q3 last year,
Right.
and Q4 wasn't that bad because of they were really relaxed on the rules of like finally if you had ordered and placed a deposit, then you can get deliveries whenever you want. So Q4 wasn't that bad either, and now Q1 2026, where it would have really hurt. You have gas crisis, also engineered by mistake by Trump. So yeah, there's a definitely an argument to be made there.
All right, we got some diesel truck stuff here, but let's move on. Yep, need those sweet MCS from Tesla and Kempower. All right, we got the Kempower guy in here. We're talking about diesel. I do ring dips too, Fred. Great chest and tri workout. I think
Oh,
he's
I'm
referring to
talking
your
about my gymnastic equipment. Yeah, those GSP product right there. Great product.
I don't know about the oil infrastructure, but the two sides have already destroyed 17% of the natural gas production capacity. I read it will take decades to bring some of that back online.
Yeah, natural gas was hit pretty hard this week. Yeah. It's not just the petroleum.
All right, my next EV will have vehicle to load, unlike my Model 3. Yeah, Tesla's really late on that.
Yeah, I think they have it right now. The hardware is there, and everything is just letting people use it.
Got to
That's
sell Powerwalls.
Yeah.
BMW never brings their wagons here.
That's true.
That's a sad point. Original i3 was sweet. We rented one for a wedding as guests, and bride was mad at us because we got all the attention. Yeah,
yeah, I'm gonna file that like didn't happen.
Hopefully the bride was better looking than the. Never mind. EVs were super rare back then. Excellent city car. But Fred, your stance on initiating folks on big batteries is like indoctrinating them on SUVs and then asking them to move to station wagons. You're indoctrinating, Fred.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's still better that they go electric with a bigger battery pack than not going electric. So I think that's the main point I'm trying to make here.
Yeah.
And I think it's easier after that to tell them like, all right, did you realize how often you actually need the 400-mile range? By then, too, like right now, maybe they can make the argument that the infrastructure where I need to go is not there right now to support a shorter range to get there with faster charging. But then in a few years, maybe when they need their next car, the infrastructure is a lot more deployed by then, and it starts to make sense. So there's I think getting them to drive electric is more important than getting them to drive a super efficient electric vehicle. But I understand the sentiment, Carl. I'm with you. I mean, I'm Naptera. Like I dropped, like I lost $10,000 investing in Naptera, fully knowing that it was most likely than not to happen, but wanting to encourage hyper efficient vehicles. So, yeah, I think I'm definitely with you on that.
And people need a way to get into EVs. You can't just go from gas to EV very efficiently. So there's two ways, in my opinion, to do it. One is, plug-in hybrid. That's how I did it. I had a plug-in Prius. I had like 12 miles of EV range, but like, once you get comfortable with 12 miles of EV range, then pretty much any car is great. And then the other way is with a bigger battery than you actually need. So there's more.
Yeah, and efficiency is going to improve overall anyway with better batteries. Like even an automaker that doesn't do anything for battery, like let's say BMW is like, we're done working on EVs. This is our i3 is the best we got. BMW is not meeting the cells in those batteries. The cells going to get better, more energy dense, and then lighter. They can put fewer of them in there and achieve the same range. The efficiency improve, and like it's going in the right direction. The important thing is going in the right direction. And then yes, there's things you can do to get there faster, but there's also going in the wrong direction, which is the US is always on the verge of doing when it comes to EVs, because 10% take rate right now in new car sales is just is just abysmal for an advanced nation like the US. Like, there is third world countries that are adopting EVs faster than the US, with way bigger infrastructure issues and all that. So, yep. Oh, something
Couple
that
more
happened
questions.
just today too, like Mexico, Xpeng is going to Mexico right now. So soon enough, like the US is going to be surrounded by EV nations, all electric nation. So let's see if the gas crisis does help right now. Otherwise, don't have my hopes up.
All right. I think it's ironic that a new i3 goes 440 miles but needs super fast charging. Pick one. Well, I think the bigger battery packs allow for faster charging
Yeah,
oftentimes. So
yeah. It's not a big one. Like a lot of automakers are like too. Like, why are you making a like family vehicle drive 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds? Like, it's like, well, I mean, you want the range. Well, the range also comes with a lot of power, so might as well give you access to that power. I think it's more a consequence than a choice.
last thing is my i3 was when I lived in Utah. Snow tires made it amazing in the snow. Maybe BMW will hear the cries and bring back something like that. That's interesting because the i3 had some of the thinnest tires I've ever seen on a vehicle, although it was rear wheel drive, one of the big differences with the Bolt.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't think I've ever recommended the i3 for snow.
Yeah. I mean, it's basically bicycle tires, like this thing right here.
Yeah.
Bigger tires than the i3.
Yeah.
No, but it was a fun vehicle, so we're not
Yeah.
trashing it. It's just, yeah, I agree with you. All right, well, that's it for the Electrek podcast this week. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, please give us a like, a subscribe on whatever app you're watching. If you're listening on your podcast app and you do enjoy listening to us, you can give us a 5-star rating if you think we deserve it. That helps the show a ton. It's free to do and it takes a second, and we appreciate when you do it. We're going to see you same time